Welcome back to another episode of the Move to Spain podcast. And also, this episode can be seen in video form as well. But don't worry, you're not missing anything if you're just listening to the audio. As always, my name is John Towell from justlawsolicitors.com. And today we have Pedro Sanchez making his podcast debut.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me here today, and it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's heard this one before, but we have the real Pedro Sanchez. We don't have the other Pedro Sanchez.
It's fine. Well, it will depends, but yeah, let's say I'm the real one.
Yeah, we have the real one. So if you live in Spain or you know a little bit about Spain, you'll understand that joke. Everybody else can Google a bit and you'll figure it out. Now, Pedro is another one of our lawyers who works in litigation and all things legal in the office. Just
Exactly.
to be
Yeah.
fair, I don't think those certificates behind him are his. I think those are Maurice's.
Yeah, there are. I mean, yeah, the wall is full of them. Yeah, from a recent. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not Pedro's. We're not trying to fake anything, but Pedro is a
No,
real
no, no,
one with
no.
a bar registration
It's
number, but we're not
it's just
claiming,
our
he's not claiming
conference
that.
room. Yeah.
Right. Now, one of the things that we see a lot on the Move to Spain Facebook group, lots and lots of questions, is when anybody says the word AFO, everybody panics and says, run away, don't buy the property. It's not got an AFO, it needs an AFO, it has an AFO, and it's like just pandemonium sets in. Now, what we always say is it doesn't matter what you're doing for a property purchase, always take independent legal advice. So if you take an independent legal advice, you'll have no problems with AFOs and whatever because we'll deal with it. And hopefully you'll have come to someone like Petro before you've signed or paid anything, and all will
Exactly.
be well. So if you can tell us what an AFO is.
Well, an AFO, or in Spanish words, asimilado fuera de ordenación, which is a bit challenging. It's not a license, not a permit. It's just simply an administrative recognition from the town hall well, normally in rural plots or rural properties, which state that you have the right to live in this property, but this property is not fully legal. It's just a simple administrative recognition of this being building. That's
Right.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's normally used to recognize that this building exists according to the Spanish law, but it doesn't mean that the property is fully legal according to the urban planning law.
Yeah. Now, I have some real life experience, and not exactly on this point, but I had an old Cortijo, and at one point I sold it, and everybody was emailing me saying, "Have you got an AFO?" And obviously I was like, "Oh hell, I need it." So I spoke to a lawyer, obviously at the firm, said, "No, you don't need an AFO because your property was built legally." So there's some
Exactly.
property, not every rural property needs an AFO, does it?
Yeah, there's a difference. I mean, the AFO, it's only used for illegal properties, not legal properties. Is if the property is built on a developable, not, I mean, on a developable area, you don't need an AFO. That's the thing.
Right. So say, for
Well,
example,
it is usually used for non-developable, well, small town or countryside or just rural areas
so say, for
where
example,
the land is, yeah,
somebody has got some rustic land and, a few years back, the father built a house completely illegally and then they got an AFO. It would be like that, wouldn't it?
well, to be, I mean, fully legal is not possible, just the administrative recognition. But let's say that the town hall has a minimum period, or, I mean, to consider the property as an AFO, which, according to Andalusian lista or urban planning law in Andalusia, it's 6 years since the finalization of any other constructions and restructures and renovation of the property. So the property needs to be finalized within the last 6 years. That's the first
Yeah.
point for Andalusian urban planning law. Then we have other difference in, I mean, because the law or the planning urbanization law will change depending on the local town hall. So the minimum period can vary between 6 years. We have 10 years in some local towns in Galicia, north of Spain, and then we have 8 years in some parts of Catalonia.
Right.
But that's between 6 and 10 years to be
Right.
considered and to proceed with the administrative recognition of an AFO.
Yeah. So where we would come in is we could be acting for somebody in, I don't know, rural Galicia, rural Granada, and they've seen a house and they come and say, uh, it's got an AFO. So if we work on the assumption that it's got an AFO, that doesn't mean automatically that the house is completely legal and proper, does it?
No. It is not. It's just a simple administrative recognition. And please, we always advise and advert our client that do not consider and do not take fully, let's say, legal advice from a state agent that it simply has an AFO. What we will always ask is the writing confirmation or all the certificates from this AFO, which includes the technical architect report and the paper with it states that the town hall consider that the property or the land area is considered as an AFO. And as well, another point to consider is that the land is not considered as a protected area. Because if the property or the land is considered as a protected area, we have a small problem. Because in some cases, the town hall, I mean, if we have passed the rule of the 6 year for the enforcement of the demolition, it's fine because the town hall cannot start a proceed within an infraction of urban and so on. But if the land is considered a protected, there's no minimum period, and the local town hall could start the legal action to enforce this demolition of the property.
Yeah. So say, for example, somebody comes to you and says, look, I found this property. I just want to stop there because something you said, when you say, I think we should say, do not take legal advice from the estate agent, full stop. I mean,
exactly.
I've got nothing against estate agents, but, Pedro studied for 6 years full time in law. Listen to him, the estate agent, they get paid when it gets sold. It's just be very careful. Take independent legal advice. That's the whole reason why we started all these podcasts, Facebook groups. So say, for example,
that's it, John.
So the estate agent says to the happy couple, well, this property has got an AFO. Then what do we do? Obviously, it depends on where it's built. But what do we do then? You mentioned a few things, but if we go through them, what do we have to establish going forward?
Well, inside the AFO, there are 3 points to consider. The situation of the land, protected or non-developable. Yeah.
If I say, for example, so maybe English people, I'm not sure about it, maybe a little bit different in America and Canada, etc. But in England, you can build on a national park. It's very, very hard to do it unless you did it before a certain date. And you've got to look at where it's being built, haven't you?
Well, you only have the right to build, and we cannot say build because if the property has an AFO, you cannot legally build or increase the volume or the square meters of the property, but you can do some restorations or renovations according to the healthy measurements or just the legal conditions the property to live in. I mean, the habitation certificate, let's say. So that's the only way that we normally take in account. And when we fully read the AFO, that we will check that it has these conditions. Like you will be able to do some renovation or restoration only according to the healthy measurements and some restrictions, let's say, but you're not legally open to build any other areas or any other, like a pool or storage or something like that in rural
Yeah.
plots.
Yeah. And if it's just, is that the same if it's just not national park, but just rustic land?
In these cases, it's fine. You have the AFO and it says that you have the administrative recognition, but the property is not legal. The AFO doesn't mean that the property is legal. It's tolerated, but not legal from the town hall, okay? Sometimes the AFO is used to have the suppliers connected to the property. For example, like the electricity, the water, and some cases like the septic
Yeah.
tank or to connect to these suppliers. But it will depend always on the local town hall, okay? Because they will require different documentation, let's say architect report, and some other town halls will require a lot of documentation that we, before signing, or we always say before signing the deposit or something, please let us check the completed
Yeah.
version of the AFO.
Because we might need to get, would we advise the client to get their own architect involved, or would we deal with the architect from the town hall directly?
Yeah. Well, in some cases, I mean, you can attach the architect report to the town hall, but in some cases, the town hall, if the property or the land is in a protected area or there's some infractions already exists inside the property, you will not obtain the AFO, which I mean, you can sell the property, but according to the Spanish law, this is not. I mean, we do not recommend to do that
Right, that's it, yeah. So
because
yeah, so that's one of the one of the things that people have to take account of. I mean, it's just it's easy, it's hard to give a one piece of advice, isn't it? Because there's lots and lots of different scenarios and circumstances, and because you could have different buildings on different types of land in different town halls in different provinces in different regions.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because
I mean,
in Andalusia we have the law for the comunidad from Andalusia, the community of Andalusia, but in some other regions or local authorities, it's completely different. So before signing or checking something on the property, is it advisable that we can check this local urban planning law?
yeah.
I mean,
There
just to check
isn't,
if everything's legal. Yeah.
yeah, there isn't one law in Spain which covers this because the different um, parts of Spain have different laws. I mean, I want to make this as easy as possible for people, and I'm not trying to like, say, oh, I'm going to make this complicated. You have to have a lawyer and everything, but it's just so difficult. I mean, that's it. There's so many different regions and places. Yeah,
I mean, normally when we receive an AFO, we just call the region or the town hall, the local one. We receive the local urban planning law, and we compare this law with the AFO that we have received, and we check everything's in order. That's the main. I mean, the thing to simplify.
yeah, yeah. And what would be, say for example, somebody just took the advice from the estate agent, said, "Oh, it's got an AFO," and they just bought it and went to the notary, signed the contract. What are they risking by doing that?
Well, there are some risks inside
Well,
the property.
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
good. Yeah.
I'm
Well,
shaking
first,
now, but go on.
if the property is in a non-developable area or protected area, there's no rule for or minimum period of an enforcement of demolition from the local town hall. That's the main risk. So
Now,
in some cases, once
now
you
that
have
would mean, that would mean that you become the owner, and at any time going forward, someone can come and knock your house down.
exactly some authorities, some local control who can knock on your door and tell you excuse me, but we have the right to start a demolition against your property. And that's a big problem once you have to start the process to buy a property,
Right.
or
So
you have already done. Yeah.
are there any, I mean, obviously that's a massive risk, but are
Yeah.
there any other risks?
For example, the resale considerations,
Yeah, because the next
because
person might take legal advice.
exactly. So if you don't have the AFO and your property is in a non-developable area, the future buyer could tell you to have a minor price of the property and start the negotiation, so you won't be able to sell property at the value that you were intended to sell.
I mean, I
So that,
think that the value of the property for, I mean, I don't want to, I mean, I'm not a Spanish lawyer, so just as a civilian, I would say that the value of the property in those circumstances is it's just the land, isn't it? Because your property could be knocked down.
yeah, and that's an important thing includes the AFO, because if you are considering to have a financial report from a bank, some of the banks will tell you that they will only start the financial within the land value, not the property building value.
Well, that makes
That's a good
sense.
point to consider. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you,
And sometimes they don't even offer financial situation to the clients because some of the AFO or some areas are difficult to check within the small local town halls. But I mean, some of the cases, the bank or the mortgage is approved.
yeah. So if you if you need a mortgage, they may not give you a mortgage at all, or they may only give you the mortgage on the value of the land, or you might not get a mortgage at all because it's very difficult to check.
Or they will require a lot of documentation,
Yeah, right.
which is the
Yeah. So
cases.
so
And yeah,
so that's the risk basically that you take.
yeah. And then there's another risk when you have an AFO inside your property, because the AFO uh, it's not the situation of consolidation, which means that the local and general law not is not applied to your property forever. So in the future, the local law change, the situation of the AFO of your property will change as well, because your property is not in a legal situation.
Yeah, yeah,
To be maintained on the future legal changes, the property needs to be fully legal. If your
yeah.
property have an AFO, if the law change, the condition of your property will change as well.
Right, yeah, okay. Now, what would be the situation if an estate agent tells somebody, "Oh, you can buy this. Don't worry, you can get an AFO in the future." What do we do in those circumstances? Well, we run to the lawyer first, but what would we advise the client?
Well, I would say that the due diligence is critical.
Yeah, I mean,
Hello? Yeah, hello. The due diligence in this case is critical. So it's not enough that the agent will say that there's an AFO. You have to check the rustic land, if the property or the land is protected, and if the AFO is granted or only applied for, because there's a big difference for
mm,
this, because apply doesn't mean that it's granted.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's, that's the
yeah,
difference.
yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, brilliant. We just submit an application. Happy days.
Yeah.
So, if an estate agent says to somebody, "Ah, don't worry, um, your lawyer can get an AFO for this. You can live happily ever after," then of course seek legal advice. But is it, but there could be a situation where you could look at it and go, yeah, there's a very, 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 very good chance that an AFO will be granted in the future. We can do something here.
Yeah, that's right. If well, normally it will include a technical report from an architect, which will state that the property belongs to the normal conditions, with I mentioned before, the health conditions, habitation certificate, that the property has not changed for the last 6 years, and the property is according to the urban local planning law. This is what the technical report from an architect, or what we'll say. And once we have accomplished these measurements, you can start the process to obtain the AFO and attach it to the local town hall. And hopefully in the future, you will obtain it.
Right. And I suppose it's a matter of contract. Who would pay for all these architects and stuff? I mean, that's negotiation, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it will depend always on the sellers or the buyer, but normally the sellers is the one or the responsible to start this process, and we can negotiate in the future within the price of the purchase, or a small retention in some cases until the AFO is fully completed.
Yeah. So you can say, okay, you want X for the property, but we are only going to give you Y, and we'll give you the remainder once we get the AFO. Yeah.
Exactly. We can add a conditional clause in the contract or the deposit contract, which states that the seller is responsible to obtain the AFO before the completion date.
Right. And hopefully, I
And
can just
start
imagine that.
yeah, that includes a lot of work, a lot of money, because you still have to coordinate the cadastre, change the owner, coordinate the cadastre and the land registry, which sometimes includes time, several months, and sometimes a couple years.
Right. What would happen if, in a scenario where there's a property and there's an AFO, and then we do our due diligence, we get an architect, the architect checks it, and the AFO is not right for the building. It's something's wrong. There's another building, or this bit's too big, or what would then happen?
Uh, you can buy the property without an AFO.
Yeah.
That's fine, but we advise things to be clear before doing it. Like if the property does not have the AFO, there are some things to check. Meanwhile, like the coordination or the square meters or the buildings are the same in cadastre and the land registry, and as well as there are no open files or urban infractions from the town hall. You can check separately from the AFO, but normally all these things are included inside this local town report.
Right. Okay. Right. So I think what we have to take from this is don't run away if you hear the word AFO, no AFO. Just like any purchase, just go to your lawyer first before you sign or pay anything, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But before proceeding with the purchase or signing any reservation contract or deposit contract, it is normally for the lawyers to check the completed or version of the AFO reported from the local town hall. And sometimes just the technical architect report at the beginning, but then normally the full version of this AFO.
And one scenario is if we determine that the property is built in the national park, then in your mind, you have to accept that, just think that really you've only got the land. You might have a nice building, it might look lovely, but that could go at any time and you just own the land. So you've got to accept in your mind, if you're paying the price you're paying, you've got to accept it with nothing. I'm making gestures for the people on audio. That it's just a piece of land.
Yeah, well, if the property is in a national park, which sometimes in
Yeah.
some of the cases in Andalusia, that's normal,
Yeah.
because I was able to assist to the last conference of urban planning law here in Malaga, and they mentioned that there are 300,000 properties within inside or situation of an AFO and 10 million in Spain. And they also mentioned that Spaniards in the past, for the last 30 years, they have an artistic devotion to build properties in illegal areas. So that's
Yeah.
completely fine
Yeah.
in Spain. And some of the local town halls, they will not really start actions against the property, because in some areas, I mean, the population of small town is between 1,000 people living there. So just imagine the major of the local town hall starting to have problems with the neighborhood and so on. So that I mean, it's not usual this to happen, but we
You
need to
could.
check it before
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you
that's it.
could. I mean, I know from my own experience, I mean, my property was on practically the limit of the national park. And I knew there was loads of other properties that were getting built, and they were getting built in the national park. But we can't say for sure if you said major, but it's the mayor of whether or not the mayor's going to have the money. He isn't going to have the money. He's going to do it. He isn't going to do it. He's going to do it because you've just moved in and you haven't got loads of friends and relatives and da, 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 but they're not going to do it. The best thing is to seek the legal advice and say, look, this could be knocked down. It could be knocked down, so assume it's going to be knocked down. Be very
Yeah, exactly.
pragmatic. That's it, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm optimistic as well because if you have the AFO, you have the full documentation. I mean, you can check everything inside the property. So
Mm.
it's
Yeah, so
fine. And once we can check it, we can give legal advice to our clients. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, is there anything else that you want to add, or you think we've?
now, John, from my side, I mean, I'm open to some or other future question that
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, I just
people
think
could
that,
have.
yeah, I mean, just, don't be afraid of the thing about the AFO. Just take advice, people. It's hard to give like one size fits all advice, really. And we've acted for people who've bought properties that didn't have an AFO, they've got an AFO in the future, we've paid for it, the seller's paid for it. It's all by negotiation. There's scenarios where, yeah, there's no problem, and this is scenarios where, nah, you're just buying the land. Yeah, but I think that's it,
Uh,
really, isn't it? What can I just ask one question? Why do some people say
yeah.
DAFO? Is that something else?
Why some people?
Some people
Excuse
are
me.
write DAFO, DAFO.
It's because the past and the last law has changed a lot of the names from
Ah,
the
right,
last
just an old
year.
name.
Because the last, yeah,
Ah, right,
yeah,
okay. It's not a separate thing. So, yeah, okay.
that's the same thing. You
All
can
right.
use DAFO or AFO, and in some documents, old ones, you can even use SAFO, but it's the same word.
Okay, right. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm sure we're going to
Thank you
get
so much.
lots and lots of questions in the Move to Spain Facebook group because there's going to be so many variations on this. But like I said, I think I learned something today, so that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jan.
All right.